Okay, I'd like to call the special meeting for the Town of Essex Select Board to order for Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. Thank you for joining us. First question is, are there any agenda additions or changes?
Yes,
Okay.
Kenneth Willits had to withdraw his candidacy, so he can come off the agenda.
Any board changes? Okay, should we go through the formality of removing or?
Well, I don't think it's really necessary.
No, I think you can
Yeah.
skip it.
All right, let's bypass it, we'll get there. All right, then the next thing on the agenda is public to be heard. This is a time for the public to bring issues to the select board that aren't on the agenda. If you'd like to speak, either raise your hand in the room or on the in the online meeting. Use the hand raise function or indicate in the chat that you'd like to speak. If you're on the phone, we'll give the opportunity to break in as well. If you'd like to speak, please be brief, please be civil, please refrain from using inappropriate language. Address any remarks you make to me as the select board chair. Please do not attack others or town staff. If you are online, please keep your microphone muted so you don't inadvertently interrupt others. Don't intentionally interrupt others as they're speaking either. And also, if you're online, please leave your camera off to reduce distraction from that. So with that, any public to be heard comments in the room? I don't see any online. There is one person who's on the phone. If you have a public to be heard comment, please speak up. Okay, seeing no comments, we'll move on to the business items. As was mentioned before, Ken Willits has withdrawn his application or his letter of interest for being on the select board. So we will, and the way we're going to proceed here is we have a set of questions that have been published ahead of time. All the candidates have seen them. We did add one additional question last night. Hopefully everyone was given an opportunity to consider their response there. We also have two questions that were written responses that we have the that have been submitted by the candidates. Those are in the packet for the meeting. If folks want to review those or see what the candidates have to say. And so we've got a series of questions. We're going to ask them in the same order for every candidate. You'll have a few minutes to respond for each of them. I'll start out with an opening statement, then we'll end with a closing statement and give the candidates an opportunity to ask questions. Each of us are assigned to specific questions, so we will each ask the same questions of each of the candidates. Anything I missed? Anything else I need to say there? Okay, so then our first candidate is Timothy LaBombard. Come up to the microphone, please. So, welcome. Thank you for your interest. I'd like to offer you the opportunity at this point to make an opening statement. Tell us about yourself, why you're interested in being considered for the select board, and please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Timothy LaBombard. I live in 29 Frederick Road and up towards the center. Been there about 20 years. Was born in Vermont in St. Albans Hospital. Grew up most of my life in the Champlain Islands up in Isle of Mont. My father was in politics. He was a select board member for years as a family. Of course, there's only 10 people. We kind of alternate. I am currently president and assistant business manager of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, local union 300. in Vermont, which is we represent approximately in between 900 and 1,000 members, running from municipalities to inside electricians, all the linemen for Green Mountain Power, Vermont Electric Co-op, Burlington Electric Department, Washington Electric Construction, and I'm sure there's a few more. I feel my tenure there actually helps me be part of boards, and I deal with select boards a lot. I believe I see Scott. Last time I saw him was in Montpelier, in representing and dealing with contracts. A lot of the times, you know, I deal with the boards, work there. I've got a good understanding, and you know, we run our meetings in our organization very similar to a company or town. I'm invested in Essex as I live here. I intend to keep my residency, and even before I moved here, I started off at the IBW as an apprentice electrician. Went up through for I'll be 33 years. It was 33 years last month, membership, and a lot of those years I worked for this company, actually Peck Electric, and some of the others in Sherwin at the IBM plant. I haven't worked at Global, but I worked at IBM for years. It's paid a lot of my bills, and you know, Essex paid a lot of my bills through here. It's stuff, and I'd like to give back and be part of a solution, not the problem. I feel it's been very challenging times for everyone. The world's a different place than it was 2 years ago, and I would like to be part of the community again. I think there's a lot of animosity, tension, and things around the world, and you see it here. And I think on a local level, we can start to bring it back to where it was, or better. I hope or better.
Right, better. Yeah.
That's
All right. Thank you.
basically it. Thank you.
All right.
What is your understanding of what it means to be a public servant?
Well, it's as a public servant, it is our duties to represent the public, our constituents, be their voice, and attempt to govern and rule and turn the community and laws into what they see fit. It's not a personal venue. It's you represent your people, and sometimes if you feel and we a lot of times have more education about the project because it's our onus to do so. So it's that time you try to educate your constituents, members, and if you feel there's a possible better way, is to help them see that. If not, the end result is you are their representative.
Thank you.
Tim, thanks for coming in
Thanks for
tonight.
having me.
Question I have, can you describe what diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to you, specifically as it relates to representation in local government?
Can I have the last one, inclusion? It was that word, inclusion, diversity, equity, and
You
inclusion.
got it.
Diversity is basically we'll look around the board and make sure that we represent our community, whether it be laborers, tech people, other politicians, and businessmen, and everything. And that's what the diversity on the board was to reflect, and the community. So we represent all. And if you can't meet that, make sure that everyone's still comprehensive at that point. Equity is, make sure that everybody and you have those people have that position, and it's not just a fictitious, really, it's there's equity in it, and you have equity in the whole process. The last word again?
Inclusion.
Inclusion. And it's to do your best to include all diverse people with all the equity and include them, and like I said, make an effort, like the equal opportunity employers, and to solicit and bring in, if you don't feel you have enough of the representatives from whichever uh, aspect you're looking for, is get them and include them, because that's the only way you're going to get a true reading, is if you have the people that are of interest.
Great. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question is, like you to name 3 suggestions of things we can do in Essex to welcome people of various backgrounds or nationalities.
Possibly more public, or I'm trying to, not venues, but activities, more diverse, because I know when we worked with that, it's, I don't know if it's lessened since IBM was at its boom, but I mean, we had many cultures and countries and everything represented there, and I think you saw more diversity, but it's now, other than a few restaurants, there's nothing out there to teach or get the community into, and I think that would be more like when an entertainment venue or something lighthearted, would be the entertainment thing. Solicit people, open arms, open the doors, and show them what we have to offer them in the community, or what Essex has to offer them. And once they get here, do what we have to do, is like anything else or any venue, is retention. Keep them here, do what it was, and listen and include them, and deal so they become part of the community, and so you get that diversity and skin in the game, some equity.
Right, thank you. Back to you, Tracy.
Tim, how do you feel the select board should proceed when discussing separation of the village of Essex Junction from the town of Essex?
Carefully. That's one of the things, I think my question I answered on the deals that I see is, you can't talk to any resident or any friend, any neighbor, whatever. There's attitudes, there's different agreements, and it's, I think we proceed, listen, find the common ground if we can, and I don't know if we found that, and I believe, I'm not sure if it was Andy or Evan. I saw the retorter. I think it was one, or somebody said basically it's, I think we may end up being friendly foes at times. That's what it's going to have to be, and not everybody's going to agree on it. But I think we just listen, and guide with a level head and no emotion. That's hard to be detached.
Okay, go ahead, Don.
Tim, please
Yes.
talk about a time when you've changed your mind on an issue and what the issue was and how did the change come about?
One I think was very, I guess I can do this. I did basically, I think everything I just said that we shouldn't do, or we should do, I did. Shouldn't do, I did. Preconceived conception was listened to something else without thinking it was just basically a grievance I had. I stereotyped someone and threw about the whole deal, and had I had the result in my mind all ahead of time, and then I actually spent the time speaking with the person more so like I should have done originally, and found out he was a total different individual, than people were saying, and I thought he was going to be. So I came clean, fessed up, ate my crow, and moved forward. And thank God, and I hadn't progressed too far where I couldn't fix what I had in my own mind.
Thank you.
If appointed, do you plan on running at town meeting this coming March to fill the select board seat for the remaining year of the term?
Yes, I do.
Quick one. All right, so.
All in.
Yep, so those are the questions. This last speaking opportunity here for you is to make any closing remarks. If there's anything that you didn't say during the questions that you'd like to bring forward. Also is an opportunity for you to ask questions of us. If you have anything that you'd like us to talk about.
I want to thank everybody for just taking my letter of interest. I know you'll make the best choice through whoever you pick, and I believe that whoever you do, everybody will probably have an individual bonus that they can bring to the board, and because anybody who's in this room or wanting to do it, you know, God bless them, because it is a definitely commitment, and I feel I have some unique talents that I could help be part of the solution, not the problem, as I'm sure that Sue and I don't know if Kendall's in the room or not. I know Coach Willits is gone, but he would have brought some too. I just hope I'm considered, and you know, you look at it deeply. And I guess right now I don't have any questions for you folks. So watch, I know what you're doing, and I guess I could ask, why are you guys doing it?
Oh,
But
that might
thank
take
you.
all night to explain.
That's why I didn't ask.
All right, thank you, Tim. Thanks so
Thank you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you,
coming in.
Tim.
Okay, moving on to our next candidate. Sue, come on up. Keep track of how much time each take. Oh, doesn't matter. So Sue, thanks for joining us. Please introduce yourself. Any information you want us to know about you, why you want to run here. Just to take a few minutes to introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. My name is Sue Cook. I am a resident of Essex. I have lived in Essex since 1996 and raised 2 daughters here, and been part of the community and worked in the community for all those years, and really have had a lot of pride in our community. Got more engaged, you know, once my kids got older, obviously, and was part of the Essex Energy Committee, where we did some really great things, and I know the Energy Committee is continuing to do some great things, so that's a really important group right now, even more so. And then did run and was elected to the Select Board in 2016 and served for 2 years. I finished out the last 2 years of a Select Board member who had left the board. And it was in an interesting time. It was during the period where the controversy about the rec departments merging, and you know, there's been a lot of emotions in our community, and I feel like, so professionally I'm a project manager. Have been a project manager for 30 years. Have a lot of experience with forming teams, getting teams to work well together, focusing on transition and change, and getting people to feel good about change and feel good about what they're doing, and working through conflict. And you know, it's it's a role that I think lends itself well to being in a public servant role, because you're really putting aside yourself for the better of whatever the goal is that we're trying to accomplish, and really need to leverage the talents and knowledge of the team. And so I would say the same thing. We need to leverage all of the inputs and knowledge and talents of this community to help this community move forward to where we need to have it move.
All right, thank you, Sue.
So what is your understanding of what it means to be a public servant?
So, thanks. Kind of hit on it a little bit, but I really feel it's separating yourself from the role and making sure that you're making yourself available and accessible and responsive to the community. I know when I was on the select board previously, a lot of effort goes into being available and having the communications and being responsive and listening and making sure that you're treating any community member with respect and giving them the attention that they need. So and I think the biggest part of it is really representing the input that you receive. And you know, it's gonna be disparate. You're not gonna please everyone, but it's really our role as a public servant to bring that input forward and make sure that it gets heard and is a part of the collective voice.
Thank you.
Great. Sue, thanks for coming in tonight. You answered this a little bit in your written question, but I think this is a chance to be a little more free-ranging with it. Can you describe what diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to you as it relates to representation in our local government?
Yeah, so I see diversity as not just, you know, I mean, there's the obvious diversity of race and origin and culture and religion and sexual orientation, and then there's diversity of experience and thought and perspective, and I think that all of that diversity is what collectively leads to you know, the community. And as a representative of that community, it's really imperative to understand, you know, all those different tentacles of diversity that exist and make sure that there is an opportunity for it to be treated with respect and the input to be carried forward. From a equity perspective, I think it's really important. I think I did hit on this in part of my written answer. Making sure that we're looking at not just slicing things up evenly in terms of resources and services, but really looking at how do we make sure that everyone within the community is getting what they need from our municipality. So, you know, making sure that the people that are in most need are able to get what they need, and the people that maybe are, you know, looking for a different kind of service from the municipality have the opportunity for that. So just making sure that you're not just being equal, but because equal is not going to get everybody to where they need to be, but really looking at the next layer deep to see what is really needed to get people to be at a point where they can be all have the same opportunity. And then inclusivity, you know, making sure that we are providing opportunities for all different perspectives and all different diversities to be a part of the leadership and the representation that exists here, providing mentoring and making sure that people know that no matter who you are or what you represent, that you are part of this community, and we are going to make sure that we include that in our community voice.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Sue, could you make 3 suggestions of things that we can do in Essex to welcome people of various backgrounds or nationalities?
Yeah, so one thing I thought of, and I don't really know where this stands currently, but I really think ensuring that the town staff and leadership is getting appropriate training on diversity and how to, making sure that we, from a leadership and staff perspective, the most current and appropriate training is being provided, because it's a evolving topic, and what was kind of taught 5 years ago is no longer really appropriate, and the community is evolving as well. So I think that's one thing I think I would start with. Kind of hit on the, maybe setting up some sort of a program for mentoring, and maybe asking some people that do already have some sort of a diverse perspective or diverse position to take on some mentoring to lift up maybe some other members of the community that don't see themselves as much in the leadership within the community, and get a little bit more diverse representation within the leadership of the town. And then similar to what Tim mentioned, I really think there's an opportunity to do some sort of a fun community-wide event where people from different either cultures or origin or religions, or have the opportunity to showcase what makes them special, and share awareness about that, where there may be some ignorance within the community, and not understanding all the different traditions and cultures. And I think that there's an opportunity to spread awareness and joy.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
How do you feel the select board should proceed when discussing separation of the village of Essex Junction from the town of Essex?
So I feel like there's been a lot of hype and urgency that's been kind of creating some pressure on this topic, and I feel strongly that we need to slow down a little bit on it, to make sure that we're doing appropriate upfront planning, and making sure that both the village and the town outside the village have an opportunity to really look at what does it mean, and how do we get to a situation where both communities, if the separation does go through, both communities will continue to thrive and do well in their own rights. I do feel a little like it's been kind of a reactionary kind of thing, and I'd like to see the town have a chance to really do some whiteboarding of what does it look like for the town if the village separates, and how do we make sure that the town gets what it needs in addition to the village getting what it wants. So but I think that the number one is when you create this, we're all busy and there's a lot going on in this world, and everybody's trying to keep things moving, and sometimes things get dropped when things get done in a little bit too urgent way. So I think being a little calmer and putting a little bit more thought and planning into it, I think would get us to a better solution for everyone.
Please talk about a time when you changed your mind on an issue. What was the issue and how did the change come about?
I thought about this one for a while. I couldn't like come up with a specific example. Not to say that I haven't. I do change my mind all the time, but the reality is it's not a big deal for me to change my mind. So it wasn't like I could think of like one specific example. As mentioned, as a project manager, it's a very collaborative role, and I am never the decision maker, although the team leads me to make a decision. And you know, I feel like from an approach perspective, that's what the select board's role is as well, is to, you know, although the policy gets made here and the final decisions get made here, they don't get made here in a vacuum. You need to make sure to take the time to listen and get that input and represent that input and hear that input. And, you know, I think that is how decisions get made. And not to say I haven't at some point had to rush to make a decision and not had the opportunity to take in all that input, but I think, you know, ideally that is how I would normally approach things. And so that's what I couldn't think of a specific example, and I apologize for that.
Okay.
But you know, the reality is, I think going through a collaborative approach often leads you to maybe not the decision that you would make, but the right decision based on the group.
Thank you.
If appointed, do you plan on running at town meeting this coming March to fill the select board seat for the remainder of its term?
I honestly can't say yes or no yet at this point. And I thought about this as well, and you know, it just seems a little premature to make that kind of decision. I know that by the end of January I would need to make a commitment, and I think by that point I'd be able to have a better perspective on whether, you know, I would run to fill the seat for the remaining, I guess, one more year, right? But I can't say yay or nay. I would definitely consider it, but I feel like I should have the same opportunity to consider it in the same timeline that everyone else that would possibly throw their hat into the ring.
All right, thank you, Sue. You made it through all the questions. The last speaking point here would be to, if you have any other comments you want to make that didn't come up during the questions, any closing remarks you have, and if you have any questions that you'd like to ask the select board.
So, yeah, so a question that I have is just, you know, so I know the budget cycle is starting up pretty soon, right? And I think, you know, when I considered whether I wanted to jump in and get back involved, I looked at the time frame and what's going to be occurring in the time frame between now and March, and there's a lot of important work that has to go on. So, and probably the biggest piece of work is that budget review. And so I'm just curious, like, when you think about the budget that's coming up, what do you view as the biggest challenges?
So yeah, so we did have a discussion about, we're starting the process 2 months earlier than we have in the past.
That's good.
So that's give us a lot more time to work through it. And unfortunately, it's probably crushing our finance director right now because she's got 2 budgets she's working on. But the priorities that we talked about, I know climate change was one that came up as a big focus for a number of members. And the other one was around diversity and equity and inclusion. Those are the 2 priorities that I recall us bringing up during our discussions. We also have, you know, the prospect of, separation potentially in the coming years. And that we need to be cognizant of the fact that there's a potential for a large step function increase in the tax rate. So we need to understand what, what those implications are and whether we need to do something about them now or about that, possibility now. But having said that, though, we do still need to run the town. So I don't anticipate that we'll be defunding anything at this point. Is there anything else what budget that we?
You get the big
Yeah.
three I thought of.
Yeah. I liked your comment. I just wanted to say, I heard a phrase today that was, a couple of us attended the Vermont League of City and Towns Town Fair today, and there was a phrase that came up that sharpening the axe doesn't delay felling the tree. And so that's, I think, what you're talking about, getting, making sure you do the work ahead of time rather than rushing into a bad solution, because it could take you more time to do.
Yeah, there's a visual, which is two mountain peaks, and a mountain climber kind of just throwing his axe across and trying to get from the top to the top versus somebody that
One
actually
peak
takes
to
the
another
time to
peak.
plan to go down and back up and probably will get where he's trying to get to. So, yeah, there is a like a human nature to just want to jump in and do things, but really spending some good, clean thinking time up front can lead to the right solution, and I think that there's a benefit to that. So yeah, so thank you for your time, and I appreciate it, and I do see there's a lot of important work that has to get done, and that's why I decided to put myself in as a candidate. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like Kendall is online.
Yes, I am.
All right, so let's see. So, same deal as the others. Give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, give us any opening remarks that you might have, and statement of why you would like to be considered for this select board seat. Go ahead, Kendall.
Well, you've got some great candidates, and really that was the thing I wanted to make happen most, was have some good candidates. So maybe I'll give a little comic relief after that. Maybe I can provide a new perspective in some ways to the board. I'm a lifelong Essex resident. I've got great neighbors, old and new, and I've been a part of a municipal government, the Richmond government, for more than 30 years. The current board in Essex has a really good mix of citizens. My wife says I'd probably be the onion should I be chosen for the position. Anyway, I did listen in last night. I don't have an agenda, no desire to punish anybody. I don't expect to make transformative changes or suddenly solve problems. And I know there are a lot of other things that need attention in Essex besides the split, but I think everything is tied to the separation. And at least for the next few months this term, if the community separates, big changes. If the community doesn't separate, big changes. I've been involved with the Richmond Selectboard since the early 80s. So I'm familiar with how the government works, and maybe I can help the board.
All right, thanks, Kendall.
Hi, Kendall. What is your understanding of what it means to be a public servant?
The servant part is front and center. We all have personal opinions that are valid, but I think a good public servant oftentimes overrules that. You can overrule that at any time if you need to. You should try to meet the needs of all your citizens in the best way possible. The board somehow charts a course that compromises between the majority and the minority, as each can be right or wrong at any time. That is the strength of a board, in my opinion. The diverse board is always better at finding this compromise. You apply wisdom, and that may come from internal or external sources. We all only know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. public servant learns that you can never have enough different voices adding perspective to any decision you make.
Thank you.
Great. Kendall, thanks for being here with us tonight. Do you describe what diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to you, specifically as it relates to representation in our local government?
Well, I'm married to a Canadian green card holder who has traveled the world, and I have regular conversations with a Hindu vegetarian from upstate New York. I also watch a lot of different things. One of the things that struck me in a movie I recently saw was where the father commented to his children, as Mexican-American citizens, they aren't accepted in Mexico because they're too American, or America because they're too Mexican. I wonder how many folks actually really think about that. Diversity, equity, inclusion to me simply means acceptance and appreciation for all individuals in the community, which should be reflected through the policies of the local government. It includes everybody and doesn't exclude anybody, all backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences. There should be no barriers to anyone doing anything to participate in local government through the hiring practices, policies, or access to opportunities to serve. Diversity has been proven to increase creativity and always leads to better decision making. We are all the same, but we're all different. Our differences should be our strength, not the weakness.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Kendall, can you suggest 3 things that Essex can do to welcome people of various backgrounds and nationalities?
Well, I've never really had to think of what specifically you do to welcome people of various backgrounds and nationalities. I've always just welcomed everyone by waving hi, talking to them, sharing, helping out if needed. I've found on the road that if you wave at people enough, eventually they wave back or they stop and ask, why the heck are you waving at them? It's pretty easy to ask someone how they're doing on a sunny day. A smile goes a long way. I took this a little bit more literal and I did come up with 3 specific suggestions. I thought maybe one of the things you could do would be to acknowledge holidays of the different cultures and encourage participation. You wouldn't believe how many holidays there are in Hindu religion. Fantastic. And who doesn't like a celebration? You could also have specific celebrations of different cultures in public spaces. I think this happens a lot already at the farmers markets when you look at all the different varieties of food from all the different cultures that are often there. But maybe you could do something more specific involving a specific food at a specific time. The other thing is, you know, like I do this a lot, is I just Googled it. What would you do? What would be something you could do to welcome people? And I found Welcoming America. They have a whole list, a whole website that actually lays out a lot of specific things that communities can do to be a great resource, to become welcoming and welcome all different community members.
Okay, thank you.
How do you feel the select board should proceed when discussing the separation of the Village of Essex Junction from the town of Essex?
Well, I put quite a bit down in the written response to that, but I will say I just think it should be full steam ahead to separation. I see many positive advantages for both new communities going forward, especially after checking out all the forums and going through all the votes and the revotes and the revotes and the revotes and the revotes for the past few years. I gotta say, I'm always struck by how small an area of the town the city is. I think it's become kind of absurd to think that the same rules and needs could apply across the current community the way that it's separated now. I appreciate how the current board is trying to consider all the needs of the resident, but I don't think anything going forward should be cast in stone for any length of time. Should separation actually happen, I see a sea change in how the town of Essex moves ahead. I also see a sea change in Essex if it isn't approved. If you listen to the trustees, in my opinion, they are firmly on the path to separation. And if you look at history, when you look at Winooski or Colchester, I think that we're kind of resembling them a little bit right now. I know that back when Richmond merged in 1988, I was an employee of Richmond at that time, and the two boards were very evenly matched between the trustees of the village and the town of the select board. And one of the biggest issues was the village had realized that if they continued as the village for a long period of time, they would run into exactly the problems that the town of Essex has run into, where the urban residents have a lot more needs generally than somebody that's out in the end of the road. And ultimately, the village residents vote to approve a lot more expenses, and as the town grows, naturally the town taxes go up, and they're tied to those taxes even though they're in the village. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Kendall, when you talk about a time when you changed your mind on an issue, what was the issue and how did the change come about?
Well, actually, I'll mention that again because it's merging. My father was a huge proponent for the school merger. Remember that? And one of the public meetings he went to was to speak passionately for merging the school, which ultimately happened. I always assumed for a long time the same would eventually happen with the town because merger's been around for a long time. You know, and especially after I went through the village merger as an employee, and that worked out pretty well. And it's gotten better and better as the years go on, and folks come to realize they're all part of the same community. But since I've changed my mind, obviously, clearly from what I've been saying, as it seems to be apparent, we are really different. The town and the village are different. Personally, I think the town is coming under more and more restrictions and rules that are necessarily crafted to address the needs of a dense, small urban section of the town. You're trying to bring the town of Jericho in a lot of cases when you look at Essex on a map under Burlington rules. I don't see how that can work long term without some significant changes. The resistance to merger over and over that we've seen tends to confirm that. It just doesn't seem to work. So that's really where I have made a change.
Thank you, Kendall.
Oh, sorry. That's me. If appointed, do you plan on running at town meeting this coming March to fill the select board seat for the remainder of its term?
Well, if you remember when I tried for the 1 of 10 seats, one of the things that my wife was very clear about was that if I happened to get into the board, she had big plans for some kind of campaign. So I guess that goes without saying that should you happen to place me in the hot seat, that I can see lots of signs popping up on the road. So yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Kendall, thank you for your comments. This last speaking opportunity for you is will allow you to make some closing statements. If there's anything you didn't bring up during the questions that you'd like us to hear, or if you have any questions for us, go ahead.
No, basically, I'll just close with saying I'm just an ordinary guy that lives out on the end of a dirt road in Essex. I love my neighbors. I love where I live. I've been here my entire life. My father built the house in '38. Maybe I've got something that appeals to the board. I would like to thank the board for the opportunity. It's pretty unique. This is a challenge because folks that know me know that I tend to be fairly laid back, and certainly during the pandemic, you're seeing me as I've been seen for almost 2 years now, a disembodied voice. And thanks for the other contestants, because really we are contestants, and sometimes when you win, it's a win. Sometimes you don't, but you've got some good choices there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kendall.
Thank you.
So that brings our interviews to an end. The only other thing on the agenda is the reading file, and ask if the board has any comments about any topic at all.
No, I would just, you mentioned the VLCT Town Fair. I would urge other select board members to attend this week if you can. It's really interesting and worthwhile.
I think that on staff has also been attending.
Best we can.
Yep. Yeah. It's a challenge this year because it's gone to 6 days long. I complained when it went from 1 day to 2 days. And so now with it being 6 days, it's a challenge on their side too, because of the logistics of running that, the virtual aspect of it. So, yes, but the content's been excellent. I've attended the last 2 days. Actually, after our late night last night, I took a nap at 3 o'clock, so I missed the last session. But I'll catch it in reruns. It's all recorded, so.
It really, it's interesting that it's virtual because it allows people from the entire state to participate
Yeah.
without having coming to, it's in South Burlington. So it's, and a lot more of, I'm seeing a lot more names in participation. So very interesting.
The virtual is nice 'cause I can have it up in the background as I'm actually doing my real job.
But it, you know, as they mentioned, you know, there was, for the people at home, there's a session on ARPA, federal fundings program, that is very, it's very interesting for the town and the village because of the money that's coming, but what you could do with it if you put, you know, effort into thinking about what you want to do with it. You don't have to rush into something because they've also kind of talked about the time frame in which you'd have to spend the money. You have to commit it, but then you have time to spend it. So that was interesting. And all the help that could be out there if you reach out for it.
All right, so the next thing we do, I guess, I should have said this earlier, that the next thing we're going to do is or at the end of the meeting, we'll go into executive session. If we come to consensus, we'll come back out of executive session and make an appointment. If we don't, then we'll have to talk about what we do next. I'm hoping we close tonight. So, and then, I don't know how long the executive session will take. I don't know if you want to, we'll want to lurk around until we're done or be informed tomorrow. If you're still here, we'll let you know, I guess. We'll be adjourning to upstairs to a closed door room. Did you have a question? Well, either way, to allow Scott time to take down all of his equipment, we'll be going upstairs to a different room. So it's really up to you whether you want to wait.
I guess I will make a suggestion. I mean, if it's okay with the candidates, we're certainly able to call you tomorrow morning at the latest, if there's a decision. Please find time to spend time with your families.
Yeah, because it'll be right. I have no idea how long it's going to take us tonight. Irene, did you have a comment too?
Someone comes down here, asks me for the legs. First feelings I would say last minute. Thursday, move those from your upstairs when you make a decision about conservation trails for me. I just feel very public. So my request is please come down here. Whatever announcement down here, don't make us sit on the steps, don't make us wonder.
All right, thanks. So I think some of these comments might not have been heard online. Sorry, I didn't make you come up to the microphone when you spoke. Irene was asking if we could come back down to the room to state what it is that what decision we came to. And we're not going to ask Scott to stay, but we can certainly do that. I know you're often still here when we're done with our executive sessions. We can do that. Right. So,
I make the motion that we go into executive session.
we need to use the appropriate
sorry.
wording, which is, anybody have that up?
I do. I move the
Alright.
select board enter into executive session to discuss the proposed public official appointment in accordance with 1 VSA, section 313A3, and to include the unified manager and deputy manager.
Thank you, Pat. Was that Don that seconded? Thank you, Don. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Yeah, there's a hand.
I'm sorry. Let's see who that is.
Rachel is
Oh, Annie Cooper and Rachel Lazat. This is awkward because I did allow other people in the room to speak. Please don't comment on any of the candidates since it's a select board decision with regard to who we select. But Annie Cooper, go ahead.
Rachel had her hand up first. I think we might be saying the same thing. I defer to Rachel for a moment.
Sorry about that. I typed it in the chat really briefly, but my request is that if you're going to allow, if you're going to notify the in-person participants of your decision, that the Teams meeting should be kept on so that the online participants can also get this information.
I agree that's what I was going to say too. It seems inappropriate that Irene stated what her preference is as though she's, commanding the select board. So if you're going to share public information, it must be to all, not just to Irene Renner. That's odd.
Okay, I understand.
I think what Greg and I were just discussing, we can sign back in
Right.
after you're done
Okay.
and announce whatever.
Okay.
If you come to a decision, if
All
you
right.
don't,
Right.
we'll come back on and tell them a decision wasn't.
Yep. Given the
But I don't think people have to stay here for that.
right. Okay, so what's proposed here is that we will sign out of this meeting, but then we will restart it once we have. But I don't know how you'll have to leave yourself logged in until we come back.
Sorry to interrupt. So then you'd be announcing it to everyone simultaneously.
That'd be correct.
Whoever's
That's
on.
correct. Whoever's in the room, whoever's online will hear it at the same time, so that's
Thank you all very much.
important. Except in the people that are watching it, correct. Correct, and right, the recording will not include that portion of the meeting. All right, so sorry, we never did vote. Or did we vote? Did we vote?
No.
Okay.
Oh, we did.
No.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we'll go off to